TBISC, the best in sports entertainment. We're here live in Power Rooms USA. You ever want to shoot your podcast with your podcast to sound right? Reach out to Power Rooms USA on Instagram at Power Rooms USA. Also, you can follow us, TBISC, on Instagram at TBISC247. And also, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at TBISC247 Sports. Today here on TBISC podcast, we got a special guest, my guy, manager Marty. He's here. I was tracking him down, trying to get him on the show. He's a very busy guy. And I'm glad that we have him on the show today. What's going on, Marty?
Oh, man, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I feel great, man. The last time I saw you, you pulled up on me
in
the street, like on some, yo, what's up? 'Cause we saw each other in Vegas.
Correct.
At the Terrence Crawford Errol Spence fight.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And we here now. I feel good. Thanks for having me again, man.
Oh, for sure. I'm glad you can make it. So, on this podcast, we speak about a lot of different topics, boxing, different sports. But today we're going to go into boxing because, manager Marty is a guy who when I first started watching, I watch YouTube and I watch boxing and different sports on YouTube. And he's one of the guys that I saw on YouTube. And I'm like, yo, this guy knows what he's talking about. I got to get him on the show. So he's here now. So Marty, where you from?
Well, I'm, from the great city of Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
Pennsylvania. There is a Philadelphia, Mississippi, so I have to be clear. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
The city of Philly, city of brotherly love. Philly, we here.
Well, what part of the city are you from?
I'm from North.
Oh, North Philly?
I'm from North Philly, born and raised.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Island Projects, Cambridge Mall Projects, one of the roughest, neighborhoods.
Okay.
Mid-'80s, late 80s, early 90s, mid-'90s. That's where I'm born and raised at.
Okay, so in boxing, I know you speak a lot about boxing.
Yeah.
Now you're currently a manager, promoter. What do you do in boxing?
I'm a boxing manager.
Okay.
Licensed boxing manager in multiple states, and I'm also licensed as a sports ring announcer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's new. That's a couple months ago.
Oh, congrats on that.
Yes, sir.
So, how many current fighters are you currently managing at this time?
That's a good question. Most people want to know who I manage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So right now, actively speaking,
Mm-hmm.
I don't manage any professional boxers today.
Okay.
Most of the fighters I did manage, they're still under NDA, so I won't tell you who they are.
Okay.
But nowadays, because of my schedule and because I have the podcast on YouTube,
Correct.
I don't have the time nor the inclination to be hands-on like I used to be. So right now I just advise,
Okay.
I advise, I counsel a lot of professional boxers. People call me all across the country to provide my expertise and my advice on how they could navigate through their boxing career. And I have to put this out there too. I want the money up front now. Yeah. Usually when you're a boxing manager, your compensation comes back through recoupment and making a profit from the fighter's purse.
Correct.
Yeah, but ever since I've been on YouTube, I don't have the time. So it's like, I'm still boxing managing though, but at the same time, I need to check up front.
Exactly.
I need to get paid up front now.
So you speak about, everybody. Yeah, I agree. I want to get paid up front as well. Yeah. Now you speak about being, a manager in boxing. What does it entail to be a manager per se? Like, cause sometimes people mistake being a manager for being, a caretaker. Like you just taking care of them, like they're your own child. So what's the parameters of being a manager in boxing?
That's a very good question.
Mm-hmm.
Being the manager in boxing, you wear a lot of different hats.
Okay.
One of the hats that you do wear which is the main description of the job, is you're help navigating the career of the boxer.
Okay.
In other words, is you're communicating with promoters on behalf of the fighter.
Mm-hmm.
You're communicating with matchmakers to help move the fighter and get the fighter specific fights and move the fighter up into the ranking system. And there's a lot of resources that go into that, particularly monetary resources. The manager is usually the one responsible to provide for the training expenses. For that's one of the biggest expenses. I mean, of course, the trainer will then get their recoupment and profit from the purse of the fighter usually, but somebody has to pay for that, and the manager does. The manager pays training equipment, training expenses, all kind of stuff. Some fighters are called a manager for loans.
Okay.
In between fights. That happens too. But the whole thing is that the manager is guiding the career of the professional boxer, and everything that the manager does is always in the best interest of the boxer.
Okay.
Negotiating contracts, making sure that the boxer doesn't get the short end of the stick, so to speak.
Okay.
And the great thing about the business of boxing that I love is everybody at the table can get a slice of the pie. So everybody can win. But sometimes you have certain promoters or certain other managers or other people who take advantage of professional boxers. Yeah, they're easily exploited.
Wow.
And so that was one of my main motivations for entering into the business side of boxing, to help the fighters navigate through their careers but not get exploited. So it's different. I have a saying, and I say it on my podcast all the time: good representation in this business is priceless.
Okay.
It's a difference when you have a professional boxer directly communicating and trying to negotiate on his or her own behalf to a promoter and not understanding the business, opposed to someone like me. When I walk in the room, things change for the better of the fighter.
Okay. So speaking about, being a manager, what's the, I don't want to use the word rate. So what's the percentages normally that a promoter requests? Is it, 3%, 5%, 6%?
A promoter or manager?
Oh, I'm sorry. A manager. I apologize.
Okay.
A manager. So a manager. So normally for a manager, what's the, going rate on average for a manager to represent a client?
That I know of, if it, it may have changed.
Okay.
But that I know of currently, and probably since the inception of the business of boxing, it's usually the maximum allowable amount is 33 1/3% of the purse of the actual boxer.
Oh wow! Wow.
Yeah.
That's a.
I never really, that was never my fee. My fee was usually between 10 to 20%.
Okay, so now you say 30. I was thinking maybe 5-6% or something of that nature.
No, the trainer usually gets about 10%.
Wow, so that's what I was going to go into. I was going to say, so if the manager's getting 33%, and then you have to pay your trainer and your nutritionist and all these other people, how much normally does a boxer really walk away with? 20% of the actual fight check?
Well, the thing is, it depends on the foundation of how the professional boxer run his or her company. And what I mean by that is the professional boxer is the business, and the business is the professional boxer. In other words is, I'm going to put my tax practitioner hat on. Let's take professional boxers as 1099 self-employees, right? So, of course, there's a different tax rate, right, for a self-employee individual opposed to a corporation. So for me, for an example, when I get into a business relationship with a professional boxer, the first thing that I like to do is set the foundation right away to make this boxer understand you are not just a business, you are the business.
Okay.
In other words, is you are the business because you are the fighter, but you are a business because I'm going to help you build an entity that will allow you to save on taxes and other great benefits as a corporation, opposed to you being overtaxed as a self-employee, 1099 self-employee. So we got to set the foundation from the very onset of your career as a professional boxer.
Okay.
So to answer your question, it just depends. Most boxers walk away with half.
Or 50%. Okay.
About 50.
Okay. So if you were, I know you've been in the management of sport boxers or whatever. So if you were to create the perfect scenario as far as the needs of a boxer, like as far as managers, as I mentioned, trainers, what is it that a boxer, if you've had a boxer who was capable of being a champion at some point in their career, what would you recommend, or who would you recommend that they surround themselves with when pursuing their career as far as being a champion in boxing?
You mean if they're already a champ?
No. If they have the potential to be a champ, they need a foundation around them. People, it could be people, so forth and so on. What would you what would you recommend that a boxer has? Like, manager, trainer, so forth and so on. What would you recommend that they would have?
That's a good question. I recommend, and I have to say this to piggyback off of because I don't want to leave nothing out
Correct.
for scrutiny and people misinterpret what I'm saying. So I was just saying training expenses is one of the expenses that a manager have to be responsible for. There's so many other expenses. So if someone's listening to this and they'll say 33 1/3%, that's a lot. Well, there's a lot of money that the manager and even the promoter, but particularly the manager, puts out on behalf of helping this fighter navigate their career.
Correct.
So most of the times, managers don't even recoup on our initial investment. And, I said this on my podcast a couple of weeks back. Most of the times, it takes for a professional boxer from the time that they start boxing professionally all the way up until them becoming a world champion for a promoter and or a manager to recoup and even make a profit.
Wow.
So, we're always in the red a lot. You know what I mean? So to answer your question, a professional boxer needs to have a good boxing manager in their corner. That is extremely important because somebody has to pay to move the fighter. It's not free.
Yeah.
Nothing that's happening is free to move a fighter. So a good experienced boxing manager to represent you. Number one, if you are going to sign with a promoter, a good, and I mean good promoter, a man or a woman of integrity, that's important.
Okay.
So a good promoter, because you need a promoter in this business. You don't need to sign with a promoter exclusively, but you need a promoter in this business.
Okay.
You should sign with a manager exclusively, no question about that, because the manager is going to help navigate your career and give you, that advice whether or not you should sign with a promoter or not.
Okay.
If a professional fighter is marketable, okay, they don't need to sign with a promoter. But that's later on in the fighter's career. Yeah. 9 times out of 10. So a good promoter, a good boxing manager, and a good trainer. And I'm not talking about a trainer, and I know people are going to not like this. I'm not talking about a trainer who put a towel around their shoulder, be on their phone, on social media, recording you hitting the bag, recording you hitting the mitts, and then tell you to give them 3 or 4 rounds on a heavy bag, and they're turning around talking to somebody else. Yeah. That's not a good trainer. You need a trainer that's going to teach you boxing fundamentals and techniques, which is a lot of our young fighters, they're not being taught that. Yeah. And I'm not just talking about in Philly, I'm talking about all around the country, and we see it as time progresses. And I can say that because I'm also a USA boxing official, referee and the judge. Yeah. So I see, some fighters are not developing properly. But at the same time, that's what amateur boxing is for, to learn. But it goes back to having the basic boxing fundamentals. And so you need a good trainer to teach you the old school tricks, the old school way to properly defend yourself, and not just training you to have the flash on offense. And then you lack defense or lack good footwork. So you need a really, really good trainer, really good promoter, and a good manager.
Okay. Yeah. And what about a lawyer, things of that nature? I got to have a lawyer to help help you navigate, contracts and things of that nature, or is that the manager's position to?
That's the manager's position. Okay. And here's the thing: lawyers are necessary, right? I'm not going to say that they're not, but let's be clear on something. When you have a contract in boxing between 2 fighters that's going to compete, let's be clear on this: the way that these fighters get paid, it's not just through the contract that they sign to fight each other. Yeah. It's the bout agreement through the commission who's facilitating and sanctioning the bout. Oh, wow. You don't need an attorney to interpret those words that's on that piece of paper. Okay. So what I'm saying is an attorney is necessary, but it's not someone that you need to keep on payroll, so to speak, or get a percentage of your purse. All right. It's necessary, but look, for example, if you don't know how to build your structure properly, entity, LLC, INC, etc. Correct. Yes, hire an attorney. But if you have someone like me who have the background as a business consultant, I'll do it for you. Exactly. Myself. Okay. So a good lawyer is necessary, but it's not like one of those things where you need a good lawyer, a good trainer, a good manager. No. If you have a good trainer, good manager, and good promoter, you're going to be good because your promoter and or your manager, especially your manager, is going to lead you to the source when we talk about legal representation.
Okay, so just to kind of, I know we spoke about a lawyer. We spoke about so we mentioned having, of course, a good manager who wears many hats.
Many hats.
A trainer, and we spoke about a lawyer as well, a promoter as well, a promoter who has good integrity.
Yes.
Now, what we hear is about the promoters in boxing. A lot of times we hear that they are, basically savages, or they are bloodsuckers, and so forth and so on. Whereas though they kind of, can make or break an actual boxer. Whereas though, I've heard stories, not saying it's true, that Top Rank doesn't promote African American fighters the way they will promote Mexicans or Puerto Ricans and so forth and so on. So when a fighter chooses to sign with a promoter, how could they avoid those traps of per se being shelved and allowing another boxer to be more exposed or get more exposure in the sport of boxing?
All right, so you said a lot of things. I want to break it all down.
Yeah.
So let's start from the last thing you said and move back.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the thing. Boxing promoters are businessmen and businesswomen.
Mm-hmm.
So when a business person, or any of us for that matter, put out any money, right? Any money, we're putting it out as an investment.
Correct.
So we all have to understand that as a basic business fundamental.
It's a business, yeah.
We putting out money to invest, and we expect a return on our investment.
Mm-hmm.
So when a promoter is promoting a fighter, the promoter puts out a lot of different resources, monetarily included,
mm-hmm.
to make an investment in a fighter for the hopes of gaining a return.
Wow.
So most people would say, well, promoter is not good and all of them are slimy or...
Correct.
It's a business. If a promoter puts out $50,000, right, in a matter of a year for a fighter who's 2-0, 3-0, 10-0, 11-0, and have to wait an additional 6 years before this fighter possibly become a champion just to recoup 50, well, that's just to recoup the 50. What
mm-hmm.
about the 150 he put out or she put out within that 6-year time frame?
Exactly.
So now we're talking 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's work back with, you brought up Bob Arum. Listen, Bob Arum is a good promoter.
Oh, yes.
And he's not a bad promoter to black or African-American fighters.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be clear on something. Here's how I'm going to prove that. Do you all know who Terrence Bud Crawford is? If you watching this interview right now and you say yes, that's because Bob Arum did a good job with Terrence Crawford's career.
Okay, well,
I'll table that.
Okay.
Because you know I'm controversial.
Yes.
I'll table that.
Okay.
But basically what I'm saying is, if the public knows who a professional boxer is,
mm-hmm.
and they're gaining the exposure consistently, good promotion. They have a network behind them.
Okay.
That pays for their services. That's good promotion.
What about? I'm gonna cut you off.
No, come on. Let's talk.
But there's actually another promoter who they say who doesn't promote African American fighters, and that's Golden Boy, and that's very. So a lot of boxers, African American boxers, are saying that they don't want to deal with Golden Boy because Golden Boy doesn't promote African American.
Well, I'm not going to defend him because let's keep it all the way 100. Who is African American on Golden Boy's staff as far as a professional boxer? I haven't found one yet.
I think they got the kid Schofield. I think they got him.
Okay, well he's up and coming, right?
Yeah.
But Oscar De La Hoya been a promoter for what, 20-something years since he left Bob Arum.
Yeah.
Right.
And he hasn't had one. There was a time when Schaefer when Floyd was with
mm-hmm.
Floyd was doing business with
mm-hmm.
Oscar De La Hoya, and a lot of the fighters fights were being promoted through Golden Boy Promotions, but Oscar wasn't really. That was like Richard Schaefer, I believe, who was
mm-hmm. handling
a lot of that.
Yes.
And Al Heyman and so forth.
I was about to say, all of those guys were signed to the great Al Heyman.
Yeah.
They wasn't signed to Golden Boy Promotions.
Yeah.
So that's why when it all fell out,
everybody went with Al Heyman.
Yeah, but you know why? Because Al Heyman's a good manager.
Correct. Yeah,
and he built them up to a place where they didn't need an actual exclusive contract with a promoter.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm basically trying to say. But that's because those guys became marketable. And when you become marketable in this business, you don't need any belts, and you don't need really a promoter.
Exactly.
You still got to do business with a promoter.
Yeah.
But
you
exclusive contract is what I mean. Like you're locked into an exclusive deal and tied down.
Yeah, you saw Floyd do that a lot. Floyd was like, he was going fight by.